Okay, I find these videos incredibly hard to get started because here I am not wanting to work on this until I get started, and I realized that part of the reason that might apply to a lot of you, there's a little bit of resistance until you feel like you know what you're going to do. And I don't think I ever know what I'm going to do until I kind of ease into it. And so I thought I'd mention that because a lot of you may feel that certain kind of resistance about actually starting work, like I'm not quite in the right frame of mind, or I'm not quite in the right mood, so I better not do it because it's a watercolor too and it might go south on me. All I could say is that you find little places to kind of noodle around with, and until you're really ready. If you paint just a little bit, then you'll find that you're into it. You know, that your mind is then in the right place, or that's what happens with me. So we did a lot of detailed shapes. You could see them right here. See, remember where I marked it off? I guess that was the last video. And then I put a kind of a wash over the whole face, which now those areas don't stand out so much. And so I'm going back over those. That's a good place to start, because I kind of know what I want to do. And so here we've got this area in the mouth that should be darker. That's not going to be anywhere near dark enough. But here's this other little place that is really a concern for me. It's this little corner over here outside of the lips, you know, as you go into the cheek. And that's a really important place because that's defining this outer edge of the lip, which is just totally highlighted. So you can see it right here. And so I need to deepen that, and I'm going to do a little more of that now because this is looking a little bit distorted over here. And so I've got some pink color in there, but you remember our kind of homemade purpley gray here that we had. I'm stirring this up from before. It was cerulean and some red and yellow in just the right combination so that it's gray but slightly, well, it's pretty near neutral. It's not really bluish, and it's not, you know, got red or yellow. It's just a pretty neutral gray. Okay, so I want that area to stand out. Maybe I need a little bit more shape like this, because that's where the edge of the lip is. So I'm working on dry paper, and I'm going to do a little bit of that. You know, I think we could use a little bit more gray. Go ahead and put a little bit more gray right out in here. I think in the photo, it's actually got a little bit more reds into it, which I might come back and do in a little bit. But I just need something to make him have a lip here. In fact, I think I got a little further in than I wanted to get. By the way, if you get the urge to kind of scrub and lift on something, don't do it with your round brushes like I just did, because that really frays those little bristles here along the edges. They just tend to fray, and even if you don't get the tip, and my goodness, what it does to the tip is just gross. Yeah. Okay. So let's come on back here with, I guess this is mostly coral that I've got here. This is my mixture from the last time I worked. Coral, it might have a little yellow in it. And you know, here's the thing. Here's the thing too. If you're wanting to warm up into this, let's work on the hand a little bit first. Because again, the hand is not going to be nearly as important as the face. So you get to screw up on the hand a little bit more if you want. So I'm going to put more reds in here where I may layer more grays in later. Let's see, I see a little shape in here. Just something like that. Now why am I painting with this smaller brush today when I didn't before? Because that's the one I picked up. That's the only reason. I think that's a 6 round. Let's take that flat and soften the edge a little bit here. Here. Yeah, let's just use this. Ooh. Just a bit of color here. Let's just let some of that leak over into these grapes. Oh yeah, you're going to see something on the grapes that wasn't there before. We'll talk about those little black places in a little bit. I had to do a little bit of warm up before I got on the video, and that was part of it. Okay, so is this a little bit too dark right here? Yeah, it is. So what can I do here? Well, instead of blotting it, I'm just going to squeeze that brush out again and suck up a little bit of extra color, however much I think I need to suck up. And then let's soften parts of that edge. I don't want to soften all of it. Then we could come up along here and add a little bit more shape. There's a little bit more red, right? That spot right there. And then what I'm seeing is I'm seeing more pink right here at the tip of the finger, which typically you'll see more pink at the tip of the fingers. So if you're doing this, if you're really serious about working on the portraits, if you will let me know, I will send next time, I will send you 2 copies of the face so that you could have one to draw on if you wanted, rather than using the acetate that I showed you. But you have to let me know. That way I know whether you're watching the whole video, because if you watch the whole video, you heard me say this. Ha ha ha. Again, I'm just looking for redder areas or darker areas. If it's darker, I'll put some red in it anyway. And if it's redder, I'll put some red in it, duh. So, works out either way. Here, right here at the tip of the fingers, got a lot more red. I think I've got quite a bit of yellow in this. This is looking pretty peachy. I think it's almost a little bit too yellow. I think I'd rather this was a little bit pinker on those fingertips. Maybe next time I put some red on here, I'll go with pure coral. Coral is becoming one of those pigments that I'm relying on a lot these days. I don't know if maybe it's getting to be a habit where I'm relying on it a little too much or not. Sometimes I can go overboard with something. but I'm really liking it. So, same thing on this hand. Even though this hand looks grayer, it's also darker. And so, in getting darker, I don't want it to just go grayer. I want a little more skin tone in it. Let's just put quite a lot more skin tone in it. See, and I could have run those in together. And again, I'm going to soften some edges, but I don't want to soften all the edges. I'll leave a few crisp spots there. Yeah, that does look terribly yellowish right now. Okay, I'm going to stick with it. So here we go in the face, and I think I'm going back to, this is a number 6 round. Well, I can't see the label, but it's a number 6. And I already did that one little spot there before I got on the video. Like I said, I have to find my way a little bit and get a little bit in the zone. Let's just do that much. There are other values in there, but this area is a little bit darker. So I just might make a spot or two in here going into that beard. It might be a little dark. Let's just, yeah, there. I'm going to leave that dark, and I'm going to not even soften the edge there. Okay. Another color that I like to use a lot, well, I say I like to use it a lot. I don't necessarily use it on portraits that much, but it's pretty darn good for them. And that is quinacridone burnt scarlet. Now, it's a little bit redder, and I just might use a little of that in here. It's a gorgeous thing to layer back and forth with purples. It just is. Whoops. So these are little areas, so even though I'm working relatively soupy, yeah, that's it. That's my quinacridone burnt scarlet. I love it. I'm just going to pull some of that color out down this way. And we'll pull out over here. And let's use a little of that. See, I've got just a little bit right here. Because I don't have that mouth anywhere near dark enough. And that mouth will have to tone down some. I mean, it shouldn't be bright red. But skip a spot. See that little skip there? Don't be too quick to fill everything all the way in. And then there's a little darker edge right along the side of that mustache. So I could, and see, you can soften edges with a round brush too. It's just you got to watch it. I got paint under my nails. You got to milk a little extra of the water out of the center of that brush because it's hiding more water in there than a flat. That's why a flat is easier to work with to soften edges, is because it doesn't hide that in there, but you can get it out. So I'm just Gonna soften that a little bit. And then there's this little shadow. Let's see, I want to make sure this is showing. Yeah, there's this little shadow. See that little shadow right there? It's kind of grayish, and it curves in this way. It's like a backwards C. Okay, it's defining the edge of the lip. So let's put that in with a little bit of a red, and then we'll come back with some gray on top of it later. But it starts underneath the edge of the lip. Comes out like this. There's a little shape there. So I got mine a little big, but it'll do the job. Let's just, there. I pulled a little bit of color up. But see, that's really defining under this edge of the lip. And see, there's a little more of it. Let's work real pale here. Kind of skips, and then there's another little shadowed place. See, because we've got some beard hair there too, so it gets kind of confusing. But right there, and see, now we've got his lip defined more. Now this area over here begins to make a little more sense because you have this fullness of the lip coming around. So let's just I think I'm going to leave that dark for now. I may wind up trying to lighten it later, but I think I'm going to leave that. This really explains that lower lip, and now his face feels in balance instead of like his lip is cut off over here. So that makes him easier to look at, and oh yeah, the painting's better. Yeah, I really feel that. And I mean literally, you know, as you're painting and you see something you like, it's a color, or there's just different areas, there's something going on. By the way, this is that little pad thing on your glasses, I think. I'll just put it in with red for now. Then your brain gets this little happy hit. I'm really into happy hits. Can't do it all with caffeine. Okay, I'm going to make a little shadow there in the eye. This is going to get some of our darks a little darker. And see, we've got to paint those glasses in sooner or later. I guess what I've just decided to do, I didn't know that's what I was going to decide to do. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little of the color here on the glasses in with this Quin Burnt Scarlet. I'm going to turn it into more of a brown later. Oops, that's a little shiny thing there on the glasses, and I just covered it up. Well, maybe I'll just make his glasses different, huh? And then there's a little bit of dark there before it goes to shiny. See those little pops of extra dark? You see how the whole thing gets better? Now, we can't tell what color his eyes are. And, I would suspect that they're brown, but really, in this lighting at this angle, they could be almost anything. And the inside of the eyeball, the eyeball itself is also shadowed so much that we don't really see a color. I'll pick up a little bit more color here and get a little more dark on the eyelid. I tried to switch colors there and it didn't really look good. So right in here, all of this is a little bit darker. Now, I'm working right in next to where I already worked that was that was just wet. But the thing is that I am working here with small amounts of paint which dry pretty fast, and I have a ceiling fan on. And so I'm kind of getting away with it. There are people who will map everything. You see them paint on a video and they paint really fast, but if you really can enlarge that video and get a good look at it, they got all these pale little lines that have it all mapped out, and I think that's just trashy. Well, not trashy, but it's just too like paint by number kind of thing. So when you see one of those, don't feel too inferior. You're probably, not always, I mean, there are people that really paint really, really well, but there are other people that paint by, practically paint by number. You know what? I think I'm going to do this with the flat. And I'm going to keep it pretty pale. But we need a whole lot more color right here. Ooh, it looks pretty strong. And then this area and all of that has got a lot more shadow on it. Well, that's not too strong for this spot at all. It's a little bit, well, it's not too strong up here either. I just need to soften it. Actually, that's kind of doing what I wanted. I didn't really expect that. See how I've left this tiny highlight? It's not much of a highlight. I don't know how well it shows up on camera. Let me look. Well, it shows up on camera more than it does in real life. So good, you can see it. You know, I'm really getting into this quinacridone burnt scarlet here. This area is still not dark enough, I don't think, but you know, the other thing is I'm kind of copying the photo maybe a little too much. The problem is when you're working like this, you really do need to copy pretty perfectly in some ways because you're doing a face. Even if you're not doing a portrait, you want it to look human. And if you let your left brain take over, it may, I'm going to leave that area right like that for right now. This whole area is probably way too light. I'm probably going to have to deepen it. But I like that shape right there. And even that little chewed up edge right there is kind of, you know, old skin. Yeah, well, you got to be cautious coming into the beard area. So let's put a little more, because this is dried by now. Yeah, see, I'm really getting into the flow of it now, and I felt like a while ago when I started the video, I really felt like this just shouldn't be a painting day. I think I need a little bit of a line right there. So even though I want to put more shading, I don't know if I want to do it right now. Let's see, that's too dark. Okay. Squeezing that brush out, I think we'll pull up a little bit of a highlight right there. Still, because that is lighter down here. And I killed more of it than I thought it was going to. But remember, you have so many options. When you kill something too much, for instance, you can still soak it right back up then, manipulate it, move it around. It's just a matter of having developed a little bit more confidence with using your brush. The other thing is that you need to be working with it when you need to be working with really wet paint. And so many people are afraid of the paint being wet and being able to flow that they hamper themselves by working too dry, and then they can't really manipulate the paint the way I can because they're just working too dry. So I think what's going to wind up happening today is that we're going to work mostly with just shaping some of these little areas on the face, which is the most important part. And I'm going to show you a little bit about the grapes. So I'm pulling that up because I want more of this quinacridone burnt scarlet in here. I'm enjoying it. It just seems to be right here. And I want to keep it out of the other paint. So all I need is just to have a dry area there because the surface tension will keep that from running into the coral. It's a little bit darker and richer. It's sort of like instead of phthalo blue, you have Prussian blue. Prussian blue is, I don't know, it's just like a duller version of phthalo blue, duller or richer, and that's what this is. It's a duller, richer something. Oh well, forget it. Okay, so let's see now. I did that little swipe there, and which is already dry enough to work on, and it is way too dull. See how red this area is? Now, we don't necessarily want to get as red as the picture. And there's also some dark beard hair in there that's making this go dark. But I do believe that we need something a little more. But I want soupy paint. I can't tell you, even though I'm working tiny areas, I'm working soupy. Forget juicy. This is all the way soupy. Okay, a little water here. Let's flow it back up this way. I want to soften that quite a lot. There's an area there that I want to change, but I'll come back to it later. So the other thing is that there are things you should only do so much of at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. So there. So let's take a really pale, soupy stuff, and let's make some other little beard shapes in here. I've got some pencil lines in there where I just couldn't leave well enough alone before. But since that pencil is gray, gee, it kind of works here, doesn't it? There's nothing wrong with having pencil lines as part of your painting. That looks a little bit fence posty. See, 1, 2, 3, 4 there. Let's pull one of those out, change the shape on it a little bit. Well, that's not a very good thing. Let's see. I don't know about that. This shape looks better. It's still wet enough. I'm going to not mess with it. So I think what I'm going to do is, you see this cheekbone, this whole area is darker. So right now he looks like his cheekbone is very prominent right here. Looks like it sticks out this way. See right here, it looks like it's sticking out at you, but it's not. It's flat, particularly right up to this point. So you could almost, oh dear, I don't have the right a pen, but right here. Does that show? That's, I'm seeing a definite plane there. Comes all the way from over here. Whoa. Does that look dark? Okay, so definitely I've got to soften this edge. And I definitely got to soften this edge. This area is still way too light, and now it's more obviously light than ever. Okay, I thinned my paint out because I don't want to get that as dark as this over here. And the smartest thing would have been for me to do those in separate. Oh, I'm getting a back run. See, because I didn't do the smart thing. Ooh. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm just sucking up. I'm not brushing, trying to move it around a bunch. I'm basically pulling up the excess moisture to stop the flow, because then I can come back and work on it. But I'm stopping flow. I'm not moving dry paint around. There's a big difference. So when you see me do this, I need to tell you that, because I don't want to create confusion here. So I'm going to pull this red in here. I love this purpley gray that we had up in here, and I'm going to put it back in a little bit, because we'll get even darker. There. Now I'm looking, and this isn't dark enough to suit me. That's dark, and that needs to come up. So, see, his cheek still looks too full right here, because this red needs to come up to here, and that'll take the fullness out of his cheek. So, I have to come back to that, because that's wet enough. Let's work on his neck a little bit, and then I'll go feed the dog. Literally feed the dog. It's not an art term. It's way dark in under here. And it gets a little bit lighter, not a lot. It's a dark area here. I don't pay as much attention to that because it's not in the middle of the face. But he does have an area where the light's hitting his neck, chest, collarbone area. Well, I guess it's too high to be collarbone. Well, what I did was I lost my hard edge that I liked. And so I'm just going to get this damp. And I'm going to squeeze my brush out and pull up the extra water. I still got all soft edges there. Let's just give it a little blot now. But I'm going to go back and put some crisp edges in it for this. And this area's got to darken there and there some more too. But that sort of fixes it. Okay, time to feed the dog. I'll be back in a few minutes. Nothing bugs me than giving somebody cheeks that look too big and rounded like that. So, I'm going to get rid of that. And then I've already got over 33 minutes on this video. So it's stopping time. So I'm actually going to curve it that way. See that? It's sort of like I'm fighting that area by making it go the other way. That's still going to be too light. We'll have to put a little something more in it. And see, it's not that I'm concerned with it being too light in terms of skin color as much as I am that it's going to distort the shape of his face. I think I'll leave a couple of areas there that I didn't soften the edge on. See, there's a little bit of an edge there and there. Not much of one, but a little bit. Well, this go up in here. And see that burnt scarlet, it's just that, it's burnt. So it looks, that is, it looks muted. It looks a little browner, but you could never get it by adding brown to something to look like they made this pigment look. It is just a gorgeous thing. We may need a little brighter red in there. I think I want just a little bit. We might want a little more bright red on the nose. The nose is still too weak. You know, it looked just right when I painted it. Now that I got some other darks in, and it's dried all the way, it looks pretty weak. Let's soften that too. So I'm just softening some edges a little bit. I didn't hardly even wipe my brush off to do that. Okay. I can't say that I'm thrilled with where I'm stopping. I'm really bugged with this area right here. And I'm really going to have to make it recede more. And a lot of that, it is darker because of the beard hair that it is not turned white yet, right there. That'll give me a way to bring that in because that cheek just is still jumping out at us. I suppose that I need to get rid of this highlight here. The strongest highlight is really right there, not right here. It's probably too late to go and add water to this, and I shouldn't do it. Yeah, it's too late. Okay, let's leave it alone. And I'll fix that next time. Problem is that I have to look at it like this until I make the next video. Let's go ahead and get this stronger edge right here and down here. Apparently this guy was a really nice fellow, so I want to do a good job on him. Okay. Especially since it turns out people know him. I mean, you know, if he was anonymous, it wouldn't matter, right? Okay, so down here on this beard, at some point, I'm going to have to make some kind of adjustment right here. We'll do that next time, too. All right. That's all for now. Bye.